Readiness. Welcome, everyone. I want to thank all the friends of 4th UU and UUFC that have come here tonight for this program where we will ordain Leonisa Ardizzone. We have a beautiful program for you tonight, and thank you again for coming.
Take a breath. Take a breath and be still, just for a moment. Remember Kathleen McTighe's instruction to resist the headlong tumble into the next moment and simply breathe and be at peace. The work that has led to this moment is just at the edge of all that is yet to be. Reflect. And in your mind's eye, glance over your metaphorical shoulder at the road you traveled to arrive at this day. Leonisa, the story of your whole life has led to this moment. All the minutiae, the people, the places, the physical and financial challenges, raising a child, opening the eyes of those you taught to wonder, and the possibility of peace, equity, and justice in our world. You have been called out from among the people for just this time and place, and for all that will follow. Others before you have told of their struggle to take up that call. Moses said, "No, not me, I stutter. Pick my brother, Aaron. He's a better choice." Jeremiah said that he was too young and he didn't know how to talk to people. Even our beloved Amos, who later exhorted all to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly, first declined, saying that he was only a herder and a grower of figs. Isaiah, however, answered differently right from the start. Isaiah said, "Here I am, send me." Isaiah was unusual. Answering a call to ministry can feel unreal, even hubristic, but there comes a moment in which you can do no other. You, Leonisa, have answered that call to ministry, to facilitate the growth of the beloved community and to build a better world, peopled by a priesthood of all believers. But for today, you stand not at the margins, the forming edge. Today, you stand at the center of this gathered community. We gather in recognition of your call to ministry and to celebrate all that went into getting to just this moment, the strengths and the moments of weakness, the joy and the self-doubt. As our colleague, Melissa Carville-Zeimer, has said, for years of preparation and stretching and growing and forming, of learning to live more fully open to yourself, to others, to life, to love, to mystery, and to the beloved. For this, we gather here today. For those who are here, and for those whose presence is felt in spirit among us, come, let us celebrate together.
Today, just like every Sunday, we Unitarian Universalists light the chalice as a symbol of our faith. We light this chalice today, aware of the journey that led to this moment, mindful of the ancestors who silently guided us, grateful for friends and family who encouraged us, humbled by the work that we are called to do.
Good afternoon. I'm Andrea Lerner, and I'm part of the Central East Congregational Life staff. And I'm delighted to bring greetings on behalf of the Unitarian Universalist Association, our president, Susan Frederick Gray, and this congregation's primary contact, Patricia Infanti. It's by far the best part of my job to be with congregations at a time like this. I walk with you in sorrowful times and in happy times. It takes a village to raise a child, and it also takes a village to raise up a minister from among you. So I thank you all for your love and devotion that has brought us to this day. My colleague, Nancy Bowen, said, being a minister is sort of like throwing up. You should only do it if you absolutely have to. So I'm assuming you absolutely have to. And so I really wish profound congratulations to the Fourth Universalist Society and to Leonisa Ardizzone on the occasion of her ordination. Blessings on your new path.
Good afternoon. I'm Colin Wulff, Director of Chalice Children here at 4th U and former Assistant of Religious Exploration at the Unitarian Church of All Souls. Leonisa, or Dr. A as she sometimes goes by, exemplifies an enduring commitment to science and environmental education, as well as to the spread of peace. She has a doctorate in peace education. And with these values guiding her ministry, it follows that she is a passionate supporter of the religious exploration programs for which our denomination is well respected, even in non-religious circles. Her daughter, Rafaella, loved her matriculation through RE, culminating in her coming-of-age ceremony right here at 4th U. LREDA, Liberal Religious Educators Association, on whose behalf I deliver this greeting today, states, "Our understanding of vision is what we want to make real, with mission being how we are going to get there. Our vision is that LREDA is creating a world guided by love, justice, and equity through our mission of advocating for and supporting professional religious educators, advancing the field of Unitarian Universalist faith development, engaging in the transformative power of shared ministry, and challenging systems of oppression." In the context of the time I've spent serving as a religious educator at UU congregations, I can personally say UU religious exploration programs are built to give participants of all ages through each successive stage of their physical, mental, and spiritual growth an environment for questioning and discussion. Classes and workshops offer exposure to enriching ideas, historical perspectives, current events, world philosophies, and neighboring faiths. Curricula are developed in accordance with and for the purpose of instilling our 7 UU principles, with an aim to providing opportunities for applying those principles through interactions with peers, instructors, family, and community members. Structured to include conscientious avenues for civic responsibility and activism, sex ed, and creative inspiration and storytelling, among other important sources of personal growth and discovery, our programs are often what attract new membership, hoping for a place where they or their children might thrive amongst kindred spirits and inquiring minds. In keeping with the aim of true lifespan formation, adult programming at many congregations offers continuing education via lecture series, meditations, discussion groups, and other mediums to members who have already come of age, so to speak. Religious educators are expected to uphold, model, and practice the values they endeavor to instill in the classes they lead. Leonisa, already a fine example of this expectation, will no doubt continue to meet and exceed it as she furthers the more and more profoundly necessary work of science appreciation and an informed striving for peace in the lives she touches.
Hi, I'm Rafaella, Leonisa's daughter. My mom asked me to lead this ritual, Luce di Gratitudine, so she could acknowledge the various groups of people who helped her get to this day. Right now in school, I am reading Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God. The first line of the chapter 3 says, "There are years that ask questions and years that answer." My mom told me that this is her favorite line in the book, and when she first read it almost 30 years ago, that line stuck with her. She told me that when things were rough, she'd say to herself, maybe this year is an asking year, and then she hoped the next one might be an answering year. She's had a lot of asking years, and now she is living fully into this answering year. And she wants to thank the people, all of you, gathered here for helping her find and live fully into her answers. I will light the first candle as her partner in crime and her best friend forever. Now, some of her sisters that are here today, Kristin, Tori, Betsy, Evelise, Beverly, and Lisa, please come and light a candle. Our NYC happy place and our home for many years was Fort Tryon Park. And Mom had a dear colleague that she spent hours playing with in the park with, Ryan Ruiz. My mom was blessed with meeting and working with Lee, the Deputy Commissioner of the NYC Department of Design and Construction, who is a true kindred spirit and fighter, like my mom. Now her Union Spirit mates, the folks who kept her propped up when she was struggling in seminary and are still dear friends and colleagues, James and Liz. My mom often calls Pono Learning Center the place that helps her see hope in the world, and her colleagues there are visionaries, true friends, and shining lights. Maisa, Kate, and Julieta. My mom has taught hundreds of students over the past 27 years, probably thousands, and she would like to thank Jed Levison. However, he has the flu, so my mom would like to bring up Mac Didden to light a candle. The MFC requires intern ministers to have a learning committee. My mom was blessed with a great group of listeners and supporters in Poughkeepsie: Linda, Soyel, Nick, and Kathy. My mom has been a musician her whole life. There's a new album dropping May 15th, by the way. And, and sometimes it has to take a backseat to everything else. But making music with these guys, it's one of her greatest joys. And her two consistent collaborators have been Justin and Jess, always. And finally, my mom, out of the blue in the summer of 2015, met Michael, now her husband and my stepdad, who supports her in everything she does.
This is a beautiful reading chosen by Leonisa for today. Found While Lost by Eric Martinez Resley. The beauty of the world is the mouth of a labyrinth, writes Simon Weil. We would be foolish not to follow its call. So we enter the labyrinth, lured by the whiff of a dream still in the making, the possibility of a new relationship, the promise of a new career, the potential for a new beginning. We can never be sure what we'll find once inside, but this much is certain. There will be times when the beauty of the world, and with it the entrance to the labyrinth, unexpectedly disappears. Some relationships will disintegrate, some careers will dissatisfy, some beginnings will disappoint. Unable to find the labyrinth's opening, we often find ourselves in frantic search of escape, fumbling for the next step, tiring ourselves out in that process. Disheartened, dispirited, we feel disoriented, and we get lost. The question is not whether we will get lost in life, but rather how we will move through it in faith. Will we dwell on everything that we have lost, or will we focus instead on everything that we have yet to find? As it happens, there is much that awaits us in our lostness, much to be excavated, examined, even exalted. In not yet knowing what will be, we are afforded the opportunity to appreciate what already is. The things hiding in plain sight. A frayed relationship, for example, may reveal our deeper needs. An unfulfilling career may motivate us to seek out a mentor. A misstart or a misstep may remind us of our own fragile humanity. It may claw open our hearts and sensitize us to suffering of others. When lost, perhaps the greatest question our faith asks of us is this: how will we be found? Once the time is ripe, the stars align, and the way begins to open, will we be ready to embrace the mystery anew? Will we choose to trust anew, to risk anew, to hope anew? Will we allow ourselves to yet again be drawn in, swept up, taken over by that magic that makes life worth living? In the adapted words of Simon Weil, for if we do not lose courage, if we go on moving, it is absolutely certain that we will finally arrive at the center of the labyrinth, and there the light is waiting.
Good afternoon. Leonisa had chosen to dedicate today's offering to two communities important to her call to ministry, the Fourth Universalist Society and the UU Ministry for Earth, which I'm pleased to represent today as a board member. It takes communities like these to support one's call and to birth a minister and a ministry. This congregation is a community that welcomed and supported Leonisa and Rafaella in all aspects of their spiritual development. This place has been the fertile soil, if you will, in which Leonisa's call to serve the world as a science, environmental, and peace educator found its theological grounding in Unitarian Universalist values. Now, mind you, she had already been a force of nature, with her thoughtful and impassioned work of informing the young and old alike of the mysteries of nature, its delicate balance and fragility, and our duty to be compassionate caretaker to all of creation. Here, her work began to grow its deeper roots and ultimately transcend the language and concerns of the secular world, taking on a more spiritual dimension, becoming sacred and holy work. Here, with the support and love of this community, a call to her own ministry for the earth was seeded and nurtured. Leonisa's ministry is a life-affirming and forward-looking one, meant to inspire effective local and global actions within and beyond Unitarian Universalism. Unitarian Universalist Ministry for Earth is also committed to empowering UUs everywhere to take bold, accountable, faith-grounded action for environmental justice, for climate justice, and for the flourishing of all life. We share with Leonisa a vision where reverence for all life inspires practices that work towards an earth made fair, an earth made just, and sustainable for all beings. And offering then to support the Fourth Universalist Society and the UU Ministry for Earth in their work to cultivate ministers of and for this earth will now be gratefully received. Let your generous gifts honor the blossoming of Leonisa's ministry and the gifts that she brings to a world hungry for love, for wisdom, and planetary stewardship.
Hello? There was a boy, a very strange enchanted boy. They say he wandered very far, over land and sea. A little shy and sad of eye, but very wise was he. And then one day, one magic day, he passed my way. While we spoke of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me: the greatest thing you'll ever learn, just to love and be loved in return. And then one day, one magic day, she passed my way. And while she spoke of many things, fools and kings, this she said to me: greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return.
One of the things I like best about ordinations is the long parade of people who speak and share and dote on the ordinand and praise them and tell endearing stories. And there is more to come, I assure you. The ordinand often feels complicated about this, complicated emotions. There is without a doubt deserved delight and pleasure at hearing so many things from colleagues and friends and those you've served in ministry. It's been a long, long road, after all. But there can also be an ease at being so unequivocally in the spotlight. We feel uncomfortable about being on display, at accepting compliments, about the big event being all about us. If we are ministers having been raised right, we have healthy skepticism of our own ego, knowing to mistrust its impulses, to put ourselves at the center of things. Exactly what this service is all about. Leonisa, I know you felt some of these things coming in today, and that is a credit to you. You've spoken to me about your desire to center those instead who have supported you and been there for you during this long journey. I've never seen a gratitude ritual like this before at an ordination, and it's wonderful to see how many people have believed in you and cared about you and saw your future as something that was bright. I know Fourth Universalist, this congregation, feels the same way as they do, as do I. You've done so much here at this congregation far before I even arrived, far before you moved to Rosendale to bring your family together. People loved your sermon from a few weeks ago. I heard about it just this Sunday morning again. And we can be kind of a tough crowd sometimes. You pioneered a jazz Vespers service when you were a member and then led monthly Buddhist meditations, of which still are sorely missed. And I still hear, why don't we have those anymore? You led the dreaded Christmas Day Sunday service, which most ministers avoid like the plague, and parented Rafaella in a way that she still wants to come to cons in GA when so many youth drift away. All the while, you work tirelessly to be here today. You've asked me to reflect on the support we give one another in light of the tremendous support that you've received. I want to talk about what that support means in terms of ministry, especially now that you will soon be the Reverend Doctor, which has to be one of the coolest titles you can have. We all aspire to that title someday. I want to start with the good news, which is that just because you are a minister, it does not mean that you stop receiving support. We are in the caring profession, of course, as ministers, but it can be a trap when our identity becomes only that of a helper. It can become when someone needs support, we are the ones who are there. When someone needs solace, we know what to say. And that is good, but it is troubled if it is paired with either the conscious or unconscious belief that we don't need that help ourselves. Even more insidious, that we shouldn't need it, or that we take pride in not needing it, or that good ministers are always strong and confident and holding it together. If you, Leonisa, ever encounter a minister who thinks that way, who believes they do not need support, either they are too afraid to admit they are human, or they lack the self-awareness to know they are. The best case scenario is that they are still too green to know they are on a winning streak, and you have yet to fall from inevitable grace. To succeed in ministry requires that we continue to receive the gifts of ministry, certainly from other colleagues, but also from friends and family, and even complete strangers. It can be a surprise or intentionally sought out. It requires humility and the wisdom to not clutch onto being ministers so tightly that we can't do anything but. It's being a person who understands that grace does not come from us or from us being perfect, from the kindness of others and the world. And we clergy need that as much as anyone. We occupy a challenging space. We live in the balance between being both deeply human, just like everyone else, while also being called to support others in almost an entirely selfless kind of way. I know we're not alone in this. Therapists, teachers, doctors, social workers, we are all part of the helping profession. And no matter what your career is, there's a way, I'm sure, that you can find the call, the support, and serve within it. But ministry is unique and hard in a special, unique way, I think, because our lives blur so closely with our work. We pray with people, we counsel with them, we preach to them, but we also make small talk at coffee hour. We eat together at potlucks. We take the train together to attend a protest. The nature of this work is so holistic, it is done anywhere people are, wherever and whatever they are doing. This can be really tough, but it can also be some of the most unique and unusual and interesting parts of our job. My first ministerial act ever, for example, was blessing a grill of bratwursts, because that's what Midwesterners care about. And they started every annual year with a picnic. But this kind of mixture can make it really hard to separate ourselves from our work. With being a minister and being a person, it's hard to separate. For some people, it's a clean cut between personal life and ministry life. And the only way to ensure that is clear, healthy boundaries. But even the clearest boundaries can't prevent blurriness. What's important is a healthy boundaries part, not just for the congregation's sake, but for your own. Because in this job, the blurred lines between work and the personal often leads the personal to lose out. It's not the work, usually. It's easy for us in our lives to be subsumed by our job, its responsibilities, its anxiety, even by its exciting possibilities. For most ministers, the only person looking after you in your job is yourself. I have no direct supervisor reminding me to have good boundaries. No one in any congregation I've served has insisted that I take a day off in the way that I have insisted some of my staff do, or skip a meeting. And it's not that people don't care. They do. But there is a loneliness to ministry because it's your job to take care of a lot of people, and it is no one's job to take care of you, except for you. A mentor of mine once insisted that I should take care of myself more than I ever thought I needed. Err on the side of being too good to yourself, she said, because it is the only way we can course correct enough to get the balance that we need. When she sensed that I pulled back, thinking I didn't want to be selfish or accused of being a slacker, she said that I needed to take care of myself, not just for me, but for the congregation that I served. I was no good to anyone being exhausted, anxious, or spiritually empty. If ministry is the work of caring for others, certainly we should extend the same kindness to ourselves. One way to integrate it is spiritual practice. I know, Leonisa, as a Buddhist, you meditate, I'm sure, very often, daily, twice daily, 3 times daily. And I would encourage you to integrate, if you have not already, some certain simple questions. How is my spirit doing? How am I feeling? What does my soul need right now to be happy and whole? Where am I feeling worn or afraid or out of balance? They're simple questions, but the practice, as you know, is what is important. The trick is not just asking them, of course, but acting on the answers that they give. And to do that, we have to remember that of all things, we deserve to be happy, that we are entitled to be content, to feel good about ourselves and the work we do. We don't carry the whole world on our shoulders, that when we feel like we do and the weight becomes a burden, as it will often do, it's time to let it down. The work that we do is not to be a savior, it's not to be a martyr, or to prove yourself indispensable or perfect or impressive. Leonisa, what you intuitively wanted this service to be about, the support you've received, is more than just gratitude for the love that other people have shown you. It's about acknowledging that this support and this love is what ministry is all about at its core. It was a ministry to you, and what your ministry and all the ministries in this room are about. Unlike some clergy and other traditions, we don't literally represent God on earth, but we do have a similar calling. We are imperfect human vessels for love and unconditional positive regard. We strive to be goodwill and hope and affirmation embodied in our own unique and special way. We are called in this way because true unconditional love and affection are so hard to come by, and we all need it. Leonisa, I know you've worked with kids long enough to know the power that comes when a teacher lets a lonely child know that they are loved and special. You know how much it matters for a child from a difficult home to know that you believe in them, for them to hear that and that you think the world of them. It'll change their life. And our job as ministers is to do that as much as we can for every single person we meet. I remember talking with someone once who revealed that Sunday morning was the only time that she ever left her home. She said it was her social day, the day she looked forward every single week. What I realized after reflection from hearing her was that she was telling me just how important our church was, and that if it were true, Sunday morning was the only time she felt real human connection, the only time when someone felt that they were excited to see her, maybe the only time she felt physical touch of a handshake or a hug. There is nothing more important than being there for that person on Sunday morning. It is, as a Buddhist, you know, Leonisa, seeing the Buddha nature in every single person. In the swirl of ministry, it's so hard because there are so many things coming at you at any given moment, particularly on a Sunday morning, particularly in the midst of the week with meetings after meetings after meetings. But each time we have the opportunity to be amazed at the unique and beautiful spirit in front of us, to reflect back to them there is something worth celebrating within them, and that you can see it. Being a loving, supporting minister means making that a spiritual practice as well. Before every meeting, encounter, handshake, service, that we try to embody enough love so that it radiates outwards and can't be missed. This is super hard, and it takes practice, and it's not intuitive even for the best of us. And it is made harder in the practice of ministry by one very real thing, that the human beings we serve are incredibly complicated and messy and painful. Sometimes people don't like us. Sometimes they wish we as ministers were different. Maybe like the last minister who everyone knows was better than you. Sometimes their own woundedness or mistrust makes kindness feel incredibly difficult. Ministry involves that as much as it does loving the people who dote on you and praise you and think you are the best thing in the world. It is hard, though, because our work puts us in opposition to some of that caring. We're tasked with loving and supporting other people, of course, but we're also tasked with running an organization, taking care of budgets, setting rules and boundaries and accountability that we have to enforce. A mentor of mine once told a story about a congregation that they served that was going through a rough patch. The pledge drive was not successful. The money that they were hoping to come in did not. In one of the board meetings, a stringent budget hawk convinced the board and the finance committee the best way to resolve the budget situation was to cut the minister's salary. The minister protested, of course, and said, my family depends on that salary. I have 2 kids at home. I work really hard to be a good minister. I put in all these extra hours. And yet, to the minister's dismay, the board agreed with the budget hawk. They told him it wasn't personal, but the minister was human too. He felt hurt, betrayed, when they cut his salary. But the hardest part came a week later, when that fiscal budget hawk suffered a massive heart attack, and the minister was called to his bedside to tend to him as he died. He was driving to the hospital, racking his brain about what he was going to say. How not just to forgive a man who had harmed him, dismissed his concern, undercut his ability to support his family. Not just forgive, but to actually care for him in his final moments. Even perhaps to love him as he passed on. This is what we are called to do. It is immense, it is daunting, but it is also profound, powerful, and intimate, and full of beauty. I hope, Leonisa, that your ministry is more surrounded by love than hardship. I hope that it has not drained the warmth of your spirit, which is so vibrant, but inspires it to grow in ways that surprise you in every moment. I hope that you remember the kindness that you extend to the world, but also direct it towards yourself, because you deserve it. You've done this work, and you will be an amazing minister. There is no doubt that things will get complicated. That is the nature of people in community, which is what ministry is. But I think you have it right. Our hope comes from one another. At its most basic, this is what we do, seeing all that beauty in each other and passing it on. May it be so for you, and amen.
In the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the authority and privilege of ordaining ministers rests with the free church. It is a meaningful and joyous occasion when our community, the Fourth Universalist Society, exercises this right. Leonisa, recognizing your calling to serve the cause of liberal religion and having received the recommendation of the Ministerial Fellowship Committee of the Unitarian Universalist Association, the members of this congregation have voted to ordain you to the Unitarian Universalist ministry. Among us, and wherever you might be called to serve, we would have you preach the truth and freedom and love, minister alike to human joy and suffering, work for justice, and pastor with compassion. In all these tasks, we ask you to uphold the principles of free faith. Leonisa, are you ready to accept your ordination to the Unitarian Universalist ministry?
I am.
By this right, we also acknowledge our own calling to be engaged and active partners in our covenantal faith. We, as Unitarian Universalists, reaffirm our commitment to the shared ministry of our tradition, community, and our world. Are we prepared now to renew these responsibilities and confer ordination upon Leonisa Ardizzone? Will the members of Fourth U please rise in body or in spirit to join me in our words of ordination? We, the members of Fourth U, do hereby ordain you, Leonisa Ardizzone, to the Unitarian Universalist ministry. We charge you to lead us and all people as you have the opportunity into the fuller knowledge of truth and the greater service of love. We pledge ourselves as best as we are able to journey with you in the unity of spirit, in the bond of peace, and in all the ways of truth and love. Will Leonisa's family, friends, and colleagues please rise in body or in spirit and join in affirming this ordination? Leonisa Ardizzone, you have touched our lives in many ways, and we have been sources of love and support to you. We offer you our blessing and are proud of you as we too enter the spirit of your ordination.
With deep gratitude and overwhelming joy, mindful of its privileges and responsibilities, I take up the ministry to which you ordain me. With love as my guide, I pledge to minister in the ways of peace, hope, wonder, and justice.
Join me in prayer of thanksgiving. We're thankful that Leonisa found this congregation. Thankful that you embraced her and supported her. Thankful you saw the beginning of a minister in her. Thankful you sponsored her ministry. Thankful your vision of a future minister has been fulfilled. I'm thankful for the opportunity and joy to have watched her come into a deeper sense of herself as a minister during her internship at the Unitarian Fellowship of Poughkeepsie, and to have seen the special person that she is being recognized by her internship congregation. Thankful that she brought so much of her knowledge, her skills, her openness, caring, and love to our fellowship. We are thankful Leonisa has had the courage to travel the road of introspection, the road of self-discovery, the road of dedication to service in search of wisdom and understanding, of the ego sense of self submerged, to be guided by faith and a belief in who we are as a people and who we are as a faith community. We say blessings this day on the beginnings of a ministry of a new UU minister. We bless the beginning of a new colleague in the ranks of our ministry. We bless Leonisa as she begins the long and trying road to the minister she is called to be. And we are thankful for her willingness to heed the call to serve the greater good of our UU faith. In a moment, we'll consecrate this blessing using a time-honored ritual of the laying on of hands. This ritual has a long and rich history grounded in Christian tradition. The laying on of hands is both a symbolic and a formal method of invoking the Holy Spirit. Let us join in the sacred ritual of infusing Leonisa's ministry with the Holy Spirit. Leonisa will be down here in a moment. First, we'd like to invite Leonisa's family and the friends who have become family.
All right, so Leonisa, I'm representing your learning committee and the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Poughkeepsie, and we got you a stole. I'm crying. Don't do that. So I hope that you appreciate the symbols that we put on your stole, because it's what we learned about you and who you are and we hope that you wear it with pride.
It says here that I am to give a charge to the minister. Wait, is there a minister here? Who's that? And who is a minister? Some 15 years ago, the Zen master Ruben Abito and I were sitting face to face, cross-legged on the floor about 3 feet apart, just the two of us in a smallish room. It was a formal interview called Dokusan in the Zen tradition, and Ruben was my Zen teacher. At the end of this particular interview, there was a question I'd been meaning to ask him, and I asked, "Are you enlightened?" "Who?" he said. "Who's enlightened?" And he looked around the room, which only had the two of us in it. And then he rang his little bell, which meant the interview was over, and I bowed and departed. So it is in that spirit now that I ask, who's a minister? You? To continue in the vein of Buddhist references, the tradition in which Leonisa and I both practice, according to legend, Siddhartha Gautama sat down beneath a papala tree beside a river, determined to see his true nature. All through the night he sat, and as dawn was coming, he glanced up and saw the morning star, which triggered an experience of awakening. It was in that moment that Siddhartha became the Buddha. And the words that came to him to say aloud apparently, to no one and yet to everyone, were these: "Behold, all beings are enlightened just as they are." His enlightenment came the moment he clearly saw that all beings are enlightened. Similarly, then, I say, your ministry is realized in grasping everyone is a minister. There is nothing special about it. Nothing special. When my spouse, also a Reverend Dr. Laura Kim Joyner, was preparing to be ordained in Raleigh, North Carolina in 2002, she selected a musical piece she asked the choir to sing for the service, Circle of Life, from the musical The Lion King. One of the choir members quipped, "From The Lion King, perhaps we could also do I Just Can't Wait to Be King." But of course, it's just the opposite. One actively pursues a vocation as minister, which is to say, pursues clarity of insight that all beings are ministers, because one just can't wait to not be king. The ego insistently weaves its story of how you are the center of the universe, the sovereign of all you survey, the only important thing. Maintaining that story is wearisome and dreary work, but it's no easy thing to stop. There's a yearning to live in a bigger world than the constricted realm of self-interests, yet there's no idea how to get there. Some of us here have made a stab in the dark and enrolled in divinity school. We thought maybe that would show us how to get past our ego defense mechanisms and live in the truth that all beings are enlightened ministers. Others of us here followed other paths, or perhaps are just beginning to grow tired of the kingly illusions of power, or maybe aren't tired of it. Still, all of us are ministers, whether we know it or not. Some of us have been trying hard to know it. Today, it so happens that Leonisa is the one whose name is on the order of service, the one upon whom our hands were laid. But in ordaining her, we ordain and reordained ourselves, the hopes and anxieties of all life poured through our hands and into her and into each other, into every one of us. For this is where we are when we aren't preoccupied with our self-interests, or rather where we are anyway and always have been from the beginning, but can't always see it. So, I am here to charge the minister. Let's see, how does this go? Having identified who that minister is, that is, everyone, which this ceremony personifies in Leonisa, now to charge. So let's see, red to positive. On the positive side, do remember that you are never alone. The enlightened ministers surround you always, including all sentient beings. Do remember also that you won't always remember this. Repeating the words, these words or any others, will grow empty. In the quiet silence, the observing mind discovers that knowledge afresh, and it must be constantly made fresh. So be the good dog. Sit every day. And when you sit, the whole world sits with you. And when you don't sit, well, there are still some of us sitting with you anyway. With you, for you, as you. See your teacher regularly. On the negative side, for the charge will not transmit unless we also connect to the negative terminal, you have demons. You know the ones, the insecurities and uncertainties, the addictions that you went to divinity school to run away from. Yeah, those. They are with you still, as you've probably noticed. No need to run away. They are part of you. Send no part of yourself into exile, for that is not the path of wholeness. Demons are there to tell you important truths. But remember, demons are poets. They follow Emily Dickinson's dictum to tell the truth, but tell it slant. Take care of your demons and listen to them, but what they say is not to be believed literally. They speak in metaphor. You'll need help interpreting them. See your teacher regularly. Thus do I charge thee. It's red to positive, black to negative. I think we're ready. Start her up.
Here we go. Now we can see all of you. Of course, now it doesn't want to find the right place. I am the Reverend Beth Putnam, and I am joined by
Reverend Mark Cotillo.
And we are here to give the charge to the congregation. From now on, and from this day of ordination forward, Leonisa's relationship with Fourth U will be different. While she may not serve as a minister of this congregation, she will henceforth be a member of this congregation and a minister. This charge honors that transition and the gratitude that Leonisa feels to Fourth U for her spiritual home here and the role it played in her journey. I should say Leonisa and I and Mark all talked about this. It was over 11 years ago, and I can't believe that Leonisa arrived at Fourth U with her daughter Rafaella, a peace educator whose path had led her here. She shared with me how much healing she did once she found her home here, spending so many Sundays crying during the service, letting her hurt and grief heal. And Fourth U became a home for her and her daughter, but also a place where she could try new things. Leading jazz vespers was an important experience for her, spending time with Reverend Julie Taylor and Reverend Kimberly Johnson. Planning ministry, that is when she had her first inkling about ministry. She found her vocation, her sense of call, here at Fourth U. Many who are newer members may not know her because her formation journey led her on from Fourth U. But she could not have begun her journey without her time here, healing and experimenting and learning. So part of our charge to Fourth U is to hold that combination of home and healing, a place for growth and experimentation and change. Maintaining Fourth U as a place where the next person who begins to hear a call while here can try out new ways of being and leading. And that is the charge that Leonisa has asked us to give Fourth U, so that those who are amongst us now or those who may come in the future may honor their calls here.
I also charge this congregation with being open to how Leonisa can maintain her sense of connection to this community that has been so important to her in her journey, with the change in her role as she is now a minister. Though she may not be serving as a minister here, we are a part of who she is now. She has deep friendships and connections here, and this will always be her spiritual home. She may even come to preach here on occasion, as she did just a couple weeks ago. And even when she is here as a member, she has professional obligations as a UU minister, boundaries that are part of the ethics of being a minister. So I charge you with learning along with her what comes next for her as a member and as a minister, wherever her call takes her next. I also charge you with embodying the values that she has cultivated in her life here. Like Leonisa, as people of faith, may we always cherish the results of science and the insights of learning and education, for with greater knowledge, deeper reverence may be. May we bring more beauty in our world through music, that all may rejoice who have a voice to raise. May we also grow together in greater equanimity, that we may practice the establishment of peace in our hearts and on earth. Will you uphold Leonisa in her ministry and in these values? If so, say, we will.
We will.
And together let the congregation say, Amen.
Amen.
The day would never end without a song. The road would never bend when things go wrong. A man ain't got a friend without a song. That field of corn would never see a plow. That field of corn would be deserted now. A man is born, but he's no good no how without a song. I've got my trouble and woe, but sure as I know the Jordan will roll, I'll get along as long as the song is strong in my soul. I'll never know what makes the grass so tall. I'll never know what makes that rain to fall. I only know there ain't no love at all without a song, without a song. Without a song, the day would never end. Without a song, the road would never bend. When things go wrong, a man ain't got a friend. Without a song, without a song, that field of corn would never see a plow. That field of corn would be deserted now. A man is born, but he's no good no how without a song, without a song. I've got my trouble and woe, sure as I know the Jordan will roll. I'll get along as long as the song is strong to my soul, strong to my soul. I may never know what makes the grass so tall. I'll never know what makes the rain to fall. I only know there ain't no love at all without a song, without a song, without a song. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm partly talking to you and partly talking to them, but I can hear myself through the microphone if I look at you this way. Okay. I have the honor and the privilege of administering the right hand of fellowship. But administer sounds very technical and a little medicinal to me. So I'm going to call it to offer the gift of the right hand of fellowship. But this is a gift that comes with strings. Traditionally, the right hand of fellowship is offered by a more senior, more established minister to welcome this new minister into our professional community. I am hardly, barely more senior or more established. It was just 3 years ago that I was on the receiving end of this right hand of fellowship. But I am the president of our Ministers Association chapter, and so I will claim that authority and say, by the power vested in me by the ministers in this room and the many who could not be here today, I offer you this right hand of fellowship. But I don't think actually that's why you asked me. And it's not why I accepted. Because this is about the strings. And I said yes to this honor because my ministry is tethered to yours. Before neither one of us was ordained, we got to do ministry here together with Jazz Vespers, to grow in what it meant to be ministers, to grow in what it meant to do ministers in any way. And I trust that music will continue to be a part of your ministry. I have witnessed the way that in your preaching, you can move a room. I have invited you to preach in my pulpit, just as more senior ministers before I was ordained invited me to preach in their pulpits, just as, if you choose to have a pulpit, you will invite fledgling young ministers to preach in your pulpit. Because that's the tether. Those are the strings. This right hand of fellowship, it's not a mere formality, and it's not a holdover from generations ago. It is a reminder that you do not minister alone. It is a caution that you should not try to minister alone. It is a promise that we will journey with you. It is an invitation for you to journey with us and with all those who will follow. And there will be many who follow, because when you experience transformative ministry, that is what happens. And so the strings, as a minister who is invested in your ministry, as a minister who shares with you a commitment to serving this faith and to its flourishing, as a minister who shares with you a commitment to serving a larger truth, I offer you this, Reverend Dr. Leonisa Ardizzone, right hand of fellowship. Welcome to this work.
Thank you.
The greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. Eden Ahbez sure had it figured out. And it's simple, really, in theory, that if we all could just live into those lyrics, things might be just fine. But sometimes it's hard to conjure up love, to feel it, share it, and live by it, because all kinds of things get in the way. And as a Siciliano Calabrese, I can tell you there are lots of things that get in my way. But I have discovered that sometimes I can back into cultivating love by living fully into wonder, awe, and gratitude. And right now, I look out of all of you, and I am filled with awe and gratitude and a little bit of, I wonder what I did to be graced with so much support and love. I am so blessed to stand here in this sacred space with all of you who have helped me on my journey, who have fed me, literally and figuratively, and supported me and guided me and loved me, all because we share a collective vision of a more just, equitable, peaceful, and loving world. And for this, I thank you. E ho un benedizione per voi. I have a blessing for you. May you all be filled with an unending sense of childlike wonder so that you can explore and appreciate the pillbugs and the pine trees, the skyscrapers and the sharp nine, the years that ask and the years that answer. May you all be filled with awe at the big and small things, the Catskill Mountains and Central Park Lake, the night sky and the peepers, and the sounds of children on a playground, and the sounds of beautiful music. May you all feel gratitude for your blessings and your sufferings, for the chances you have been given, and even those you have missed, and for the people you've encountered on your journey. And may that gratitude sustain you in your quest to eliminate the suffering of all beings. May wonder, awe, and gratitude compel you to be brokers of joy and justice and love. Go in peace, confident that the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. May it be so. Amen.